but I see some new people as well as, I'll call you regulars, but I see, you've joined a lot and appreciate it. And just, you're welcome to share ideas for future webinars as well. So pleased to have you with us. And then what I did is I moved up the upcoming session slide to the front. I'm hoping you'll only see one for the 24th, and that's going to be on access to services for all. And I'm going to have as guest Giassi Burks Abbott, who you've heard before here. In fact, he was on Martin Luther King Day with Gabe Von Lee last year, and Gloria Castillo, who's the family sports director at Northeast Arc, to talk about access and access to services. So that'll be the 24th. We are going to honor and celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. next week, so there won't be a webinar next week. So just want you to know that. So you'll see that on the slide pretty quickly. And then I'm hoping we'll either do a services update on the 31st, or it might be one of the first transition and school sessions we'll have. So welcome everybody. Let me go ahead and share the screen. I'm really pleased, and we're going to have a dialogue after a little bit on COVID and introduction by Gail about sports and services. We're going to have a dialogue with you on people who have complex medical and behavioral conditions, and the whole. Oh, great! And Gail just shared her email. Yeah, we should have put that on. Thank you, Gail, for doing that. It's right in the chat, so please take advantage of that. So looking forward to today's January 10th. We are in the midst of another surge, and it actually is, people are estimating anywhere from, well, last week they were estimating ours might be quicker, 1 to 3 weeks, though it wouldn't be unusual if it went longer than that in terms of hitting the peak. And but let me share about upcoming session. We're going to have a holiday, Consideration Martin Luther King Jr., and this is 24th. We're going to celebrate his holiday in a different way and talk about ways to ensure our service system is accessible to all. So that's the following week. Well, I'm thrilled to, welcome Gail with us, Gail Gillespie, who serves as the director of the Metro Region of the Department of Developmental Services, DDS, and she's rose through the ranks. I mean, when she's had pretty much every important job you can have at an area level, and then and I feel like it was in the 2000s. I remember when you first became a regional director, because you and Terry O'Hare came to our old building to talk about the consent decrees with me, and we were trying to reach out to those families. I can't believe that was that long ago. And then you were an area director. So you were actually service coordinator and an area director and everything in between. And then you're one of only 4 regional directors for Department of Developmental Services. And she's a fellow social worker. She received her MSW from Boston College. I feel like Joe Catella used to teach there. I don't know if he was there. Yeah, am I right? Isn't that funny? So I'd gone to one of those educational things with him, and someone at BU who's great at group work. So there's a rich history there at BC. And prior to her work at DDS, I can't believe this, you must have been really young. Gail had 10 years of residential direct care and day program management. Huh?
I was just a child.
Yeah, really, I believe it. And we're recruiting children these days. The shortage is so tough. In Ohio, they're actually recruiting high school students. I'm pretty sure we're doing that here too, but with limitations on what they can do. This is the state of COVID before Gail talks, does her introduction. And it's the first time I've shared one of these screens with you. I do get my data this way when I update you on what the numbers are. And you can see they're showing the confirmed cases by age during the last 2 weeks. And you can see the huge number starting at probably age 20 through 39, and 40 to 49 is pretty big. I mean, it only slowly goes down. And then you can see 15 to 19, a pretty huge number. So the school age people, folks are pretty high. Now, the bad news here, let me go to the next slide, is I thought it was pretty bad. Last time we got together, cases have doubled again since we, last week in our Commonwealth, period, and the good news is I've been listening a lot to these, commentaries from physicians the good news is it's a weaker virus, right? And the bad news is it's around. And I know one of my colleagues last night, he said to keep it on the QT until he talks to DDS, but non-chapter had an unbelievable number of staff that had gotten it, and something like a bunch of folks that had it as well. But the system was reported 156 positive cases. I'm sure it's much higher than that right now. Gail, you might know the number. I don't know what it is, but we did ask the Secretariat if we could get, and DPH, for a weekly COVID update, just to know. I'm not sure there's much we can do about it, right, as an advocacy organization, but just to know about it. But people are working hard, and both the state system and the provider system are trying to jockey and figure out how to juggle this, as it's worse in the workforce crisis, not only in our field, it's particularly bad in our field given the work we do, but it's all over the place, as people know. And then this is the chart from last week, so I'm not going to dwell on it. So before, actually, I'm going to let you do an introduction first. The key theme on the dialogue is just trying to have a dialogue with folks, maybe some ideas from folks, maybe new possibilities, maybe just sharing your stories with Gail, because I really wanted to encourage this. And Gail was the first person that said, hey, very happy to be on and hear from people. So I'm really thrilled, Gail. And I know you wanted to do a little bit of a let's talk about, what there is first, what's the structure at DDS, right? And how people access things, and a bit about the community agencies, transportation issues, right? Staffing shortages, things like that. So I'm going to hand you the ball, put myself on mute, and I'm going to stop the share for a minute too. We'll come back when it's dialogue time to that. So again,
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I see some familiar faces and some familiar names, so it's good to connect. So I know Leo said this webinar or session was addressing individuals with high behavioral and medical needs, and I will try to do that in some small ways. But what I want to say today really applies to all families. Although I may not have solutions that meet all of your needs right now, I would really like to increase communication with you and offer a few suggestions of services and activities that might help a little bit around the edges. So I'm going to talk about the DDS structure and how best to reach key staff in your loved one's life and in DDS, and talk about some limited services that might help. And then I really want to hear from you, feedback or questions or whatever. So I think it's really important for our area staff to know about your situations. And it's important for you to stay in touch with them. We know we'll come back from this at some point, but we need to really know what's going on with you, particularly if you have a loved one who's behaviorally challenged or medically challenged. We're often in a position to prioritize services, and we really want to know what your situation is because you care for some of the people who are most in need. So I know a lot of you know about the area structure, but there are a few nuances that might be helpful to you. So on the DDS website, there's a listing of all of the areas and all the regions with key contact people. So we'll list the regional director, the community systems director, area director, assistant area director, children's coordinator, and transition coordinator. And I sent Leo a list, the most current listing, in case you like paper. He could send it out to you and you can print it out. So right now, a lot of our staff are working at least part-time remotely, particularly service coordinators, and I know that's your main contact. So the best way to reach a service coordinator is through email. And in each of the emails that the service coordinators are supposed to put their cell phone number in the email. It's a state-issued phone, so they can be contacted directly. You're also free to call the office and leave a message. You may get a return call back from a service coordinator supervisor. Every service coordinator has a supervisor, and that may be true because we have many staff out on leave. We have staff who are sick. And our supervisors are covering a lot of the caseload. So you may hear back from somebody that you're not familiar with. We also have some service coordinators who are actually volunteering in group homes. So we're trying to cover and make sure that you have a contact when you reach out. You can always call the area director. I listened to your little message, Leo, and you affirmed that if you can't reach somebody in the area office, call the area director. You have my information. I'm happy to put you in touch with whoever, even outside the region. That's the easiest thing that we can do, is to give you an appropriate email. And we also have, I don't know if people know this, but we also have an ombudsperson in our central office. His name is Chris Klaskin. He actually works with legislators and follows up on calls to the commissioner. So when he gets a complaint or inquiry, he contacts both the area director and regional director to get more information and try and resolve the situation. So we have a number of points of contact. So I just encourage you to keep in touch. As you know now, we're experiencing a shortage of staff, and it's really due to the current surge. And I think last Thursday, you had about 600 reports of positive staff and individual, which is the highest yet. And we're also, the current surge, and also what I would call this nationwide exhaustion that kind of compounds staff shortage. You know, the low wages for direct care staff, the stress of the work, and its overall fatigue from the pandemic has really influenced what we're facing right now. And that shortage is reflected in pretty much every service. And I'm sure you know all too well, day services, residential, and family support. It's also impacting our transportation services. We don't have enough drivers. And because we haven't had to provide transportation for so long, it's hard to get vehicles replaced. So that's another major issue that we're facing. There are a few things that are small things that I think are helping some families. So I'd just like to go through them. You may be familiar with some. So the first one is self-direction, either through participant-directed program or agency with choice. I gave Leo a list of information sessions if you're interested in just finding out more about that. We have them pretty regularly. They're all virtual now, so there are quite a few of them available to you. Jen might be on, and if she is, she could post her contact information as well. Jen Benoit is our self-direction manager for our region. So if your loved one attends a DDS program or did attend a DDS program, we can use that funding and pay for staff for him or her. It works best when you know someone who can provide the services, a friend or a relative, because obviously there's a staff shortage everywhere. And these supports wouldn't really be equal to the 30 hours that you may be used to in a day program, but it might be helpful for some part of the day and to give you a break, or to also give your loved one an opportunity for something different, some sort of activity. So family support centers and autism support centers, these centers are still operating, and they can give you information around community resources. They've been really helpful during the pandemic, helping families navigate vaccinations and testing. We're also hoping, many of the family support centers are purchasing large quantities of rapid testing to give out to families. So that's one initiative that we're trying to work on right now. We recently also issued a request for response for technology. And Leo knows all about that because he's one of our providers. We do have a number of agencies who are providing evaluations in technology, and they're purchasing equipment to enhance a person's life, increase independence, and provide, in some cases, remote supervision for individuals. I can give you a couple of examples of that. I'm not an expert in this area, and it might be really helpful for you to have someone who has their finger in a lot of areas of technology just talk to you about what might be possible. Because technology isn't just for folks that are independent. It really can help folks with behavioral issues and medical issues as well. The two examples that we've been working with in the last year. One is Navigating Life, and it is a application for your phone that can connect you with your loved one and the staff. So it's sort of like a fancy FaceTime that can also do progress notes and collect data and sort of really have you see what the kind of activity your loved one is doing. We're piloting that right now in our state operated programs. And the other remote services that we have used is Care Coach. I'm not sure you've heard about that. It's a remote service that utilizes an avatar, and the avatar is shaped like a cat or a dog. And it's operated by a service, and it's a 24-hour service. So an individual who may live somewhat independently can contact and talk with the avatar at 24/7. And the service also customizes things like reminders to take your meds, reminders that you have to do something particular on your schedule, etc. So we've been working with a number of agencies and some families too around this technology. I think we're just at the beginning of technology, so but I think that's something that's really new, and there are providers available to start to evaluate folks. We also have recently talked to some of our clinical staff in the areas and region. So in Metro region, we have a psychologist that works in the region. And in each area, or most of the areas, we have BCBAs. We also have an area office nurse in each area. So we've talked with them about maybe doing some consultation to families, some maybe general behavioral guidelines, if that's something you need, or maybe if it's helpful to talk to one of our area nurses around medical resources. Again, if you want to go through your service coordinator and make that request, we haven't done much of it, but we're willing to be flexible and try to, help you in any way we can. And so I know, even though the day programs have limited capacity now, we have paid families to transport individuals to day programs. So if your day program is able to take your loved one back part-time or whatever, we can pay you to transport on an interim basis until we can bring back all of the transportation. Also, if you have a particular purchase that would be helpful to you, some sort of recreational item that would help pass the time for somebody, or an item, something, a good or service that you think would be helpful, we can often do that through our family support contracts, and we'd like to know if you have that need too. So really, those are the few ideas I have. They're not panaceas, but we really do want to hear from you, and we may be able to brainstorm about other ways to help and assist. So I'd like to open it up.
Great. Gail. Thank you. That was a great overview. Covered a lot in a very short amount of time. Who would either like to share a story or concern or some ideas in this topic, given the ideally in the focus area, but we're open. Go ahead, Doris.
I just had a question about family support centers. I'm in Bristol County and a friend of mine is in Plymouth County. Where would we contact that particular center? Because this is the first time I've heard of that.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Doris, I'll have to get back to you on that because that's not my region, but
okay.
Actually, I know the Archbishop County has a family support center, and you said Plymouth. I can't remember the name of the agency in Plymouth, but I'm going to drop in the file that Gail gave me. I did drop in the other file, so
okay.
So you'll have it. Okay, I'll do it in about 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Right. And Kelly's, is any other question before we go to Kelly? All right.
No.
Kelly, do you want to? So Kelly's question, and Kathleen, you feel free to read these too. Does DDS have any plans to help the rehabilitation centers with recruitment efforts? My son hasn't been accepted into any day rehabilitation programs due to no staff. And did your son recently turn 22, Kelly? Last year or this year? Is that? We do have a bit of a turning 22 backlog. Right?
No, he turned 22. It'll be about 4 years ago now, and and his day hab closed their one location. Now the other ones that we've gone to, you know, won't accept him into the program because they don't have staff.
So what are some suggestions for now, Gail? Because this is a tough, you know, it's been really tough. It's something I know there's a family in Western Mass who they recommended, you know, a place 45 minutes away, but then transportation probably would be a problem, right?
Transportation is a real issue right now. I think anything that you can do by looking at rehabilitation programs that are proximate to where your loved one lives is important. We're fortunate in Metro because we're congested, so we have more options. Kelly, I don't know really what we're able to do around staffing day care programs. They're probably the hardest hit of all DDS. It's not really a DDS program; it's a mass health program, but of all day programs, and it's very difficult. Your son is not able to return because of staffing. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, the day program closed down also, the one, so a number, and Gail, you may know this already, there was several, right, rehabilitation locations post-COVID that did close down because of, you know, just financially, right, and the situation. So that I think was what Kelly was sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would want the area to be aware of that. I'm sure you probably have talked with them about it, but I think it's important for them to know what
The other,
issues
I
are
was
there.
thinking in the short term to really, and again, this other parent would come to us through a family support director out in Western Mass. We had recommended trying to figure out, working with the area office, a self-direction option for the time being. It doesn't take the full week, but maybe there's also, it can tie in getting together with someone else. So it doesn't have to be like, you know, an isolation, having self-direction all alone. It's probably aching for some connection, right? After all this time as well. So that would be the other recommendation, you know, in terms of, and I did put those sessions, but you might want to jumpstart it there. Each region has a self-direction contact. And I'm spacing out on the contact in your region, but Jennifer Benoit would have it.
Right.
So,
And that
and
would
you
be
got yeah, go ahead. Okay,
seal
I've
us,
got it.
yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, okay, let me, I'm going to go to Tom Taranto first, where he's in your region.
Hi, Tom. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Tom.
It reminds me of that commercial. As you probably know or remember, Christina is in residence with one vendor and she goes to a day program with another. She's not in the day program right now. But what they did for us is that every morning, they used to have a morning meeting. So what they did was they set up a morning Zoom meeting for us, at least for the half hour that they had their meeting, and invited the people who were not in the program who wanted to join the Zoom meeting to come on. And they went to a little morning meeting. Then he went around with his phone and he introduced everybody. You know, he went around to the classroom so the people were there to try to keep a friendship alive, you know, of the different people that were there. And it's worked out pretty well because we can sign on to the meeting at the same time. So we can visit with our daughter every morning for about a half an hour. And actually, there's a little extra time he signs off and he shares a screen with me so that we can have a little private visit with Christina. Anyway, it's a good idea for us, and it might work for some other agencies.
Great idea. Thank you for sharing that, Tom.
Okay. And Gail, thanks for all you're doing. I know it's awfully hard, and we just have to live with what we have and make it better. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Lucy Chansky, and then Noreen after Lucy.
Okay, so hi, Gail, and there are a few other people I haven't seen for a while, but hello to you as well. My question is, and maybe it's not exactly related to what you're talking about, but are day habs being paid when they're closed because they might be providing services in the residences?
I think so. Again, it's a mass health service,
Right.
and they have had. It gets a little complicated, Lucy, in terms of all the enhancements and the ARPA payments and all that kind of stuff. But Mass Health has given them an enhancement to continue. We haven't, we don't continue with paying for the wrap. That's not something that has continued because we're not providing it, obviously. But Mass Health has an arrangement with day have programs where they've put some extra funds in so they can bill out.
So why aren't you paying for the wrap? For instance, Matty has a wrap in his day program, but the wrap is now working in his house. So I don't know why you're not paying for the wrap. I didn't know that.
No, we're not. Because the service isn't provided, we're not providing it.
Oh, but I'm saying it is. What if it is being provided?
If the service is provided in the residential programs are also getting enhanced rates or getting ARPA funds to supplement the residential programs.
You know what I'm going to suggest? We can have another session on finances, Lucy. Let's focus on the core issue. I appreciate, because it's more nuanced than Gail can probably answer. The funding's all over the place. DAHABs do get funding. They get funding based on utilization, which means if they only have 40, 50% of the people, even if they get a higher percentage funding, it's basically, so they're getting, in a sense, more per person than they would normally get, but it's still below whatever they would have had, in terms of having attendance be where it should be. And part of that attendance problem is they can't hire staff, as Gail said, and part of it's due to transportation. But let's focus, as much as we can on what people are dealing with right now. And then we can always pick that up, Lucy. It's not a bad topic. I'm just suggesting we hold off on that right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Noreen, go ahead.
Yes, hi Gail. Thank you for doing this. It's an awful time for parents, families, and staff. Can you talk a little more about the self-direction program? What can be done through that, how to access? I have a client who gets, I think it's through the wrap, I'm not sure, but he gets one-to-one, well, he's supposed to be getting one-to-one every day for 3 hours per day, but he has not been back to his day program. He's in a residence, and at different vendors. He has not been back to the day program since COVID began. And there's no plan for his coming back yet. He is not vaccinated and probably will not be vaccinated. I think that confounds things. And my understanding, to have him back in the day, that's another question. He has to go through a number of evaluations to get him back into the day program. So there's really two questions I'm asking, I guess.
Well, self-direction, each area office has a person who is somewhat expert in self-direction, and self-direction is more the family and individual manages the service. So the family would hire the staff, and they would get paid through what's called a fiscal intermediary. And it's many individuals self-direct all of their services. And we are really looking to offer this as a sort of an interim solution or support for folks that can't go back to their day programs. Noreen, it gets a little more difficult if somebody's in a residential program. It's still possible. And when you mentioned DAHAB wrap, that is a funding mechanism we can use if somebody's had money in the wrap service. We can move that money and have that person self-directed. So what typically, you may have 30 hours of a day program. It might translate to maybe a day, 7 or 8 hours of one-to-one support. So it's not equal, but it has helped a number of people who really need to kind of get out of their house. We've done it with folks who are in residential services. It's a little more difficult. We have to really work with the residential provider to make it work. So I don't know if I answered the second one.
Can it be managed by, does it have to be managed by the family or the individual? Can it be managed by the residential director?
No, it has to be managed by the family or the individual or some support circle. And
Yes.
there would be assistance because we have service coordinators in each office that do what's called support broker work, where they manage help you manage the budget and kind of work with you around staffing. They don't hire staff, so you would be responsible for hiring. They can give you support and suggestions around that. And then there's,
This is a support broker through DDS?
yes, they're service coordinators. They just have a different
Okay.
function when it comes to self-direction.
Okay, all right.
I'm
And
going to
might
move on to a couple
Okay.
more people, okay? And then we're going to look
Okay.
at the chat because people have suggestions on the chat.
All right. Thank
It is
you.
really what Noreen's describing, what Kelly's describing. I mean, this is really, I estimated, the commissioner was surprised at my numbers estimate, which was in the thousands. And I said, I think there's 5,000 people potentially affected by this, either by inadequate assistance or no assistance, okay? So it's not, it's all over the place. And as Gail said, to then remedy it in different ways, it's going to cost more for the time, and that means it's less service, right? I want to encourage people to get involved in our advocacy for funding because we are going to be advocating for not only higher wages, but more support service packages that DDS favors, by the way, and HHS favors. This isn't like, but to get them and to get, things moving, it means investing, in these positions and the quality. So I'm going to ask Karen Venti and then Gene Simmons to go. And I'm going to keep you guys to one question each, okay? Because there's some stuff in the chat too.
Uh-oh. Hi, Leo. Hi, Gail.
Hi.
Thank you for having this. I have a medically complex daughter who turned 22 last July and is currently finishing out a COVID compensatory service package at her district. So she was brought back in-house and is finishing up in June. So my question is about programming. We also have been directed towards the self-directed mostly for interim until staffing and programs get up and running. But we were also pretty much basically understand that Dayhab doesn't really fit our daughter's needs, and neither does community-based programming. So she has a medical condition where she runs out of energy, and she also has to tend to be indoors more than a community-based program. But she's fairly high functioning in her kind of medically overseen environment. So those programs don't seem to exist, and self-directed just adds, it's just so much stress on families to try and find people to hire. I haven't had my nursing hours from Mass Health filled even prior to COVID. So even trying to get this self-directed program jump-started, it's like, well, why? Because I don't have any nursing. And I guess my part of that question is DDS doing or paying schools to keep these kids in a functional program for them until there is staffing and something out there? Like, why aren't we taking advantage of that? Or is there a way to take advantage of that? My daughter turned 22 and I just got to redo her IEP, and they slashed all of the out-of-pocket expenses at the school so that they would only be, have their in-house ones. It's just a mess.
Yeah,
there's
thank you.
nothing to go to. You can't stay where you are. It seems like, why can't we work it out?
Thank
We
you,
are-
Karen.
We do pay for folks that are receiving residential supports through the school system when they turn 22. We have done some of that. Individual.
We're not residential. Yeah.
No, I assume that you weren't.
Yeah.
And it really is about cost, Karen.
Yeah. No.
In terms of typically school programs are 2 or 3 times what the allocation is we have for people who are turning 22. I'm wondering if agency with choice might help you a little bit. I know you still have to recruit your own staff, but they manage a lot of the backroom functions that most families find a little frustrating.
Right, but until I have nursing, I can't really take advantage. That is kind of what was recommended. And I have an agency to call and work with. The problem is
Nursing.
the chicken and the egg, yeah.
So what keeps coming up, Gail, on this theme that I wish like 6 months ago I'd pushed on, but we kept thinking it's going to end, right? We kept thinking it'll get better. Is really some group recruitment. I think Kelly Sutton suggested that on the chat. I think really Karen's comments are suggesting that it's, and the nursing, my God, I think 3 years ago I was up in Lawrence with an area board and they were talking, one person talked about only filling 15% of our hours, you know? So I think that's something on the table. The other thing I'm going to say to folks that Gail would not support, and that's because of the money. I mean, it's the reality, right, of the tight money, but I want to say it. I think you go in and try to get your self-direction stuff started and you ask for more money than people are going to offer you, because the reality is it's a crisis. And that doesn't mean you're going to get everything you ask for, don't get me wrong, but try to see what's reasonable for you in your life and your son and daughter's life. The third thing I'm going to say, which I don't know how realistic it is, because we'd have to advocate for more money for DDS's budget, is the whole day piece that Gail was getting at, the higher cost. But that could solve maybe a third of our problem in the short term, having people stay in the school programs. So that's, I think we just have to figure that, be creative. And again, maybe if people stay, they'll have a staffing shortage. I don't know. We could end up, you know, it's not like it's a perfect world out there. So let me let Gene Simmons go next. And it's great hearing, I mean, I'm hearing not new things, but things said in a different way. And some are new things, and it's helpful for me and for Kathleen and others on the team here. I'm sure Gail appreciates the input she's getting, you know, and I've known her for years and she's just a great professional and caring person. So that, again, I can't thank her enough for being on something that's unscripted, as they say, you know. Gene, go ahead, Gene Simpson. I've been holding off people I know pretty well, though I did let Lucy go. So I guess I'm not being totally honest about that. Go ahead, Gene.
And thank you for this. I just wanted to jump in. I don't really have a question. I just, it's more of just a comment of where we are. I have a son who is 33 who lives at home with us and has been home for the last 22 months. We have been able to have some PCA hours. The challenge there is that we can't find PCAs. So we have one who is kind of in and out right now because she has some other family situations, which kind of leaves us in a little bit of a lurch. But I did just recently, because there is no communication about him going back to a day program, and I don't foresee him going back to a day program. He was in one before, but since he's been home for so long and his schedule has changed and he's just different, I don't foresee him going back to a day program 5 days a week. So I started the discussions with DDS probably back in the middle of December. I've been trying for a little while, but we finally had a meeting and we were talking about agency with choice. I don't know how it's going to go. You know, the challenge is, you know, finding those things for him to do out in the community when it's bitterly cold. You know, we can't go for walks and, you know, bike rides and all that stuff. So I'm sure there will be some challenges along the way, but we've at least started the discussions and I feel better about that, knowing that there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I don't think things are going to happen right away, and I'm okay with that considering the surge right now. But at least the discussions are going, and I personally don't want self-direction because I don't want to have to manage everything.
Yep.
And because he requires 24/7 care, you know, we just need someone to help. So that's just my comment.
Are you working with an agency? Are you working with an agency with choice now?
No, we haven't been set up with an agency yet. DDS is looking at the numbers. So we met with our service coordinator and with the individual who runs the agency with choice program. They are supposed to be getting back to me, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So, and you know, we are familiar with a couple of the agencies that do the agency with choice program. So one in particular that I'm very familiar with, and he gets some family support hours with. So hopefully things will fall into place, but it's an unknown. But I needed to get something moving because it's just been a long 22 months.
I hope it goes well for you, Jean.
Thank you.
So I'm going to just quickly, before I have Diane ask you something, I just want to go over the chat a little bit. And one question relates to if there is, there's day have money, and if my son isn't using any money, why can't I use it for physical therapy and other things? And I guess that would be the way the self-direction money could be used, right?
Well, I mean, if it's day have RAP funds, we would be able to do that. In terms of the payment that Mass Health makes, we don't have access to that funding.
Good point. Good point. It's a different agency. Someone mentioned, I think, Jackie, I think we did sort of, we didn't answer it satisfactorily, but the question about what people do while they're on the waiting list for openings. I guess in a few weeks, maybe we'll have the topic on the 31st on talking about self-direction again, and invite someone from the DDS team to be part of that dialogue, and someone that offers AWC. So we can have a more in-depth talk about that. I'm going to shoot for the 31st on that. Let me write that down. Kathleen, help remind me on that. And we'll push the school stuff for the first week of February, which I'd like to do on the school and transition and stuff. And then let me see, there's a couple more things. So yes, Randy, there have been split schedules. Some people are bringing people in part-time. I don't know if all providers are doing that, but I think the biggest problem is if someone has complex medical or behavioral condition, it's the one-on-one staffing they don't have. So those folks aren't allowed in. You know what I mean? They're not being taken in the way they could. And again, Barbara notes even though her son's on campus, they aren't providing the services like physical therapy. And is there a mandate? And I'd say no for having those kind of services start. Gail, there's really no thinking of that right now in the middle of the surge.
Your son is on campus. What does that mean?
Yeah, they have a day hab at Berkshire Meadows, Rehabilitation Center. But stuff like physical therapy isn't happening right now because of the staffing, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's no clinical professionals to provide it, then it's really not possible to happen.
I'm sorry, it's Barbara, so let me just kind of just make this a little bit more clear. I guess I'm wondering, under an IEP, like when he was in school, these were like the state had a contract to provide these services, like physical therapy. My son, in the last 22 months, has lost the ability to walk. This is not just frustrating to us. I think it's absolutely crucially horrible for his mental health, his physical health, etc. Wow. And I'm just wondering if he has an ISP that says he's going to have physical therapy a certain number of days a week, or what they're going to work on. Isn't that a contract the way an IEP was? And shouldn't they be responsible for getting the people who still work there, I believe, to provide the services to him as contracted?
Well, I don't see it as a legal contract. It is a plan that they should be providing the service. You have a right to appeal the ISP. The problem right now, Barbara, is that there's such a dearth of professional staff that even if, you can say you have to do it, I don't know if they would ever be able to find the professional staff to meet all of the PT needs of the individuals that they serve. Have you talked with the area office about this?
Yeah, and I don't want to use this as a gripe session. I was more wondering about what the state was saying about like the contractual. I was assuming it was contractual. If we've agreed to a plan, I expect the plan to be put in place. And if not, I expect to understand when it's going to be put into place, because I've been told they had to start by the middle of January. And now I don't think that that's the case. And I'm very confused about how things are. I'm told one thing.
So Barbara, some day habs did start. It's just that at every organization is different in terms of financially, and there's clearly their staffing crisis was so bad that they didn't even want to open their day hab months after others had opened it, right? And I know one agency just closed one of their day hab sites because of needing staff in their homes. So that's now. Having said all of that, I encourage you to advocate with Berkshire Meadows directly about this. And look, my son's not walking. Like, how can you can't we think some strategies through, and I would put your effort there. more than the area office, because clearly there's something significant going on at that organization. And again, it comes back to maybe we need to worry about ramping up recruitment, working together more aggressively around recruitment in the short term. Now, somebody else mentioned their agency that their son goes to her daughter, started offering $18 an hour, and I'm looking for the message. And the daughter or son is now heading back to the day program after 19 months. My daughter was finally able to return, Kathleen said. The vendor changed the starting wage to $18 an hour. So that's a reflection of advocating for more funding. And we do have a new workforce bill that's not, it's not formally in yet, but it asks for $20 to be the starting wage in DDS and rehabilitation. So we'll let you know when that's ready, prime time. And telehealth, just for Kathleen L., some agencies stopped doing that because of the way the reimbursement changed. And so that's a whole thing. Some agencies are still doing it, but Gail, my understanding is a lot of agencies cut back on it because they just couldn't financially do it when the reimbursements changed, unfortunately. So,
I mean, we still allow it, we still pay for it, but you're right. I think it's just bringing people back into the day program and managing remote services at the same time was tough for a lot of agencies.
Can you stay with us a few more minutes and let Diane and Alice ask their question? I just want to add WRAP is WRAP. And what that means, it's extra money that DDS gives for someone who's got usually complex medical, complex behavioral condition or both. And when they need one-to-one for lunch or they need one-to-one for the day, that money comes from DDS, which there's a transition being planned for Mass Health to pay for all of that, which worries me to no end, but if it's done right, it'll go well. But hopefully they'll do it after they get their staffing organized over there, because they did just lose the head of the Office of Long-Term Services and Supports. So anyway, I'm going to let Alice go first and then Diane. But you guys have to be short. All right.
Okay, thanks. And Gail, I was intrigued by your comment on the technological advances, and I'm just wondering how that can sometimes be difficult to implement. And I'm more asking this question on behalf of a number of friends of mine whose children have complex behavioral needs and may also be in a house with somebody else with complex behavioral or medical needs. Only some of them are technologically savvy, but the unintended consequence is, this may be a great portal or a great app or a great diversion or activity for somebody to do, but they might need somebody one-to-one to sit there with them to operate the controls. Some people can get the things, once you get it started, they can kind of sort of do it on their own. But sometimes to a parent, it seems like, oh, you're loading the staff with one more thing to do, which means if they're sitting beside my loved one, that's taking time away from somebody else in the house. So I'm a little concerned that it's a partial solution. And then the unintended consequence, just an FYI, is, all of these houses are finding that their internet service is insufficient to handle, 5, 8, 12 devices running at the same time when you add up all the residents and all the staff. So, was there any funding to go along with the technical solutions for personnel?
Well, personnel in a way, there is funding for an evaluation process and, to really kind of see what somebody needs. And then there is funding for some training that goes along with, I wish I was a little more proficient in this area.
Well, no, you're right, Gail. I just want to, you're spot on. You're spot on. And just as someone who's involved in it and helping, and we're technically not a remote provider or anything like that. I want to dispel any notions of that, but we're still very much involved in trying to advance the program. And Alice, it's not going to solve everything for everyone, but the fact of having an evaluation, see how it can advance the situation, especially around communication, and the training with that is key. And we're going to fight for more and more resources, and DDS is totally on board with this. And this, the second piece, it's not going to help on staffing, but maybe it can help with broadband and access to more ability to pay a higher monthly rate, right, for that broadband. So then I'm going to let Diane jump in before it's too late. But thank you, Alice.
Hi, Gail. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, people mentioned ISP, and I just thought, you know, I have done self-direction, pretty much private pay, since my sister came to stay in March of 2020. I've been very successful with, and I throw this out as an idea, getting out like a personal trainer to do exercises with her virtually, because she won't engage in the group thing. For a while, I had a speech therapist, again, all private pay. I would love some self-direction funding, I guess, but they had an ISP without her in November, I found out, and I thought maybe that would have been the place to offer services. And I have asked about support, self-direction, but it seems as though the people I'm talking to are not familiar with it. So I put that out there just as a landscape. Also, family supports, I believe, and maybe this has changed, but they won't help you if your individual is technically still a residential client. They're only there for the folks who's, yeah, my sister's living with me, but she's technically a residential client. But just wrapping up, and somebody did ask about where do you find folks to do these things. I think maybe Leo, or maybe if there's some kind of way to do a resource scan, this has come up before, but where can you find somebody who can take your loved one out for a day, or do exercise with them, or do music? We do music here too, we have that built in, but just a resource scan might be a good meeting to have, but it just seems like everybody's,
Great suggestion. Great. Yeah. Great suggestion. Thank you, Diane.
So Diane, if your loved one is home with you now, you should be eligible to access family support centers. It's a pandemic and a lot of people are home with their families. And the other question you had about self-direction, I know you're part of our Boston board, but I don't know where you live.
South Coastal is where.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But hold on a second. Diane, do you live in South Coastal, or is Ann?
Yeah, we're both South Coastal.
Okay, yeah. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, so, if I were in Greater Boston, I'd be fine.
Well, there's a great self-direction manager in the Southeast. Ed Wilson is his name. And I don't know if you know him, but he is very knowledgeable about self-direction, and I'm sure I'd be happy to talk to you.
But that's great. Thanks. Yes, thank you.
All right, everybody. Now I'm not feeling guilty because I did get Alice and Diane on, and I was holding off. So you guys were very patient. Thank you. And some great feedback. Maren just wrote about using a contractor outside the DDS system, getting Mass Health to pay, which is a great idea. And so I want to thank you. A lot of dialogue here. I'm pretty sure, Kathleen, the chat will remain with the tape, or we can get a transcript, or what? How does that work, Kathleen?
Yeah, it should remain in the cloud, but I'm going to save it just in case.
Okay.
That would be great. I'd be interested in that because I've been.
So, and we did share, the only file I didn't share was the area office file, which they can easily get. I shared the link, but the Family Support Centers and the self-direction PDF. So people can grab it off this chat. And hopefully in the future, they can grab it when the tape plays. Gail, thank you so much for participating. We didn't solve many problems, but we solved some problems. And I think some ideas came out. And the 31st, we're going to do self-direction. Maybe we'll also add how to do a resource scan. What are ideas about finding resources? And so let's do that on the 31st. And then I'm going to harass Tim Sindelar, who's on today, about maybe doing one of the two-part sessions around transition and early graduation and stuff like that. So that will be in February. So, and if he can't do it, we'll get someone else to do it. But thank you, everybody. Have a great week. And, happy Martin Luther King holiday next week. And we'll see you on the other side, and hang in there.
Nice to see everybody.
Oh, thank you for all your trouble. Bye.
Bye. Hi, Barbara. Take care.
Thank you, Leo.
Take care. Good seeing you, Tom. Good seeing everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.